There is something just uniquely unsettling about a completely normal morning being shattered in a matter of seconds.
Oh, absolutely. It's the worst kind of whiplash.
Right. Like 1 minute you are standing in the kitchen making tea on the Jiko. And for you listening, a Jiko is one of those traditional charcoal stoves.
Hmm.
And the air is filled with that familiar, comforting drone of a popular TV preacher. It's a Saturday routine. It's safe. It's predictable.
And then everything changes.
Exactly. There is a frantic knock at the door. You
Mhm.
open it, and your entire world just tips on its axis. So welcome back to the deep dive, and a special welcome to our target listener today, the learner.
We're so glad you're here with us.
We really are. Today, we aren't just summarizing the events of Robbers of Life, Chapter 6. You likely already know the tragedy of Rachel and the corruption of Kiandandu.
Yeah, we're going a lot deeper than that.
Our mission today is to dissect how this ecosystem of deception actually functions. We're looking at why dirty money ultimately isolates its victims rather than insulating them, and how people find resilience when the institutions built to protect them completely collapse.
And the abruptness of that opening scene you mentioned is critical because it violently tears away the illusion of everyday security.
Yeah, it really does.
We're stepping into the shoes of the narrator, Sarah, who is suddenly confronted by Sammy at her door, and he's telling her that his sister Rachel is dying at Corinda General Hospital.
Just a total shock to the system.
Completely. And we are going to analyze the stark contrasts embedded in this narrative. We're moving from the illusion of wealth to the brutal physical realities of an overwhelmed health system, and ultimately, to the mechanics of systemic betrayal.
Right. So Sarah has to get to Corinda General Hospital, but she doesn't even have the fare.
She's totally caught off guard.
Yeah, she actually has to rely on her mother,
Mm.
who had already heard whispers about Rachel's condition at an Ungumbato meeting.
Which is such a telling detail.
It really is. For those unfamiliar, a Gumbato is essentially an informal, tight-knit community gathering. News and rumors travel faster than light there.
Oh, yeah. Everyone knows everything.
Exactly. That detail alone shows how impossible it is to keep secrets in this society, yet somehow, Rachel managed to hide an entire double life.
It's wild.
And when Sarah finally gets to the hospital and meets Sammy, they walk into a ward that is just profoundly grim.
Yeah, it's not a sterile modern room.
Not at all. We are talking about patients sharing beds.
Right.
Sometimes 2 or 3 people are crammed into a single mattress. They're so weak that only their eyes can track the visitors walking past.
It is a visceral depiction of an overwhelmed public health infrastructure. It's hard to even picture. Stripped of all dignity, people are reduced to mere bodies occupying just a fraction of a bed.
Right.
But it also serves as a stark baseline for the reality of this community.
Right.
This is the safety net. When things go wrong, this overcrowded, under-resourced ward is where you end up, regardless of whatever illusions of grandeur you might have been chasing.
Okay, let's unpack this. In the text, Sarah looks at Rachel and makes this incredibly poignant comparison.
The rose analogy.
Yes. She says, human beauty is just like a cut rose flower. You sever it from its life source, and it rapidly withers. And Rachel was withered.
It's so tragic.
Keep in mind, just 3 weeks prior, Rachel was vibrant. She was treating Sarah to soda and chips. They were in the same church youth group.
They were just normal kids.
Right. And now, she is sharing a bed with a middle-aged woman hooked up to a blood transfusion, barely clinging to life.
And the reason she's there is just horrific.
Yeah. She confesses to a botched abortion at a place called Tama Clinic. She bled so profusely that the doctor literally dumped her by the roadside in the dark, assuming she was dead.
Unbelievable.
I mean, how does a vibrant youth group member end up discarded by the side of the road by a medical professional?
What's fascinating here is the sheer terrifying vulnerability of youth when caught in the economics of a hidden life.
Yeah.
The horror of Rachel's final moments.
Grasping for air, right?
Exactly. Holding Sarah's hand so rigidly, she's described as being like a statue, foaming at the mouth. It's a visceral representation of how quickly hidden choices lead to catastrophic consequences.
It escalates so fast.
Because the doctor at Time Clinic didn't treat her as a patient. He treated her as incriminating waste.
Wow. Incriminating waste.
In the illicit ecosystem of back alley medical procedures, the primary objective is the preservation of the clinic, not the life of the patient. For you listening, it forces us to consider the hidden desperation happening behind closed doors in our own communities.
Because we only see the surface.
Right. We see the vibrant youth group member, but we do not see the terror that drives them to a place like Tama Clinic in the dead of night.
And that trauma, It doesn't just dissipate when the nurses pull the curtains and Rachel passes away.
No, it's just the beginning for Sarah and Sammy.
Sammy and Sarah are completely reeling from this, but they have to go to Rachel's apartment to retrieve her belongings. It's located just a couple of hundred meters from the main bus stop.
Right in the middle of everything.
Yeah, and you would expect a modest room for a young woman in her situation.
Mm-hmm.
But Sammy opens the door to room 20 on the third floor, and they step into a completely different reality.
The spatial transition is just jarring.
It's like a different planet.
You move directly from the sheer indignity of a crowded public hospital bed to a space of absolute deliberate luxury.
I mean, it is lavishly furnished. A three-seater sofa set, a coffee table, a TV, a video deck.
Don't forget the wine.
Right. There is a side stool holding a variety of fine wines and 2 wine glasses. And behind a curtain partition, there's a clean bed with pink bed sheets, a massive pink teddy bear, and a perfectly positioned mirror.
It's almost performative.
And right above the TV, there's a large framed picture of Rachel smiling, inscribed with the words, "Feel at home, welcome." It's the aesthetic of ultimate safety and comfort.
Yet that inscription is dripping with tragic irony.
Oh, totally.
Because as we soon discover through the artifacts left behind, this space was anything but a safe harbor. It was a gilded cage designed to project an image of success while masking a profound loss of autonomy.
Because Sammy starts digging, and he finds a stash of photos that just blow the lid off Rachel's double life.
The secret is out.
She had been entangled with this man named Kiandandu. The pictures show them half-naked in hotels, drinking in bars, lounging at the coast.
There's even that one with the pastor, right?
Yes. There is a photo of Rachel sitting on a pastor's lap, which just adds this suffocating layer of institutional hypocrisy to the whole thing.
It's layered with corruption.
But then, the photos take a completely unfathomable turn. Sammy uncovers visual, undeniable proof of a murder.
They literally find bloody pictures of Kiandandu strangling a girl,
That's horrifying.
piercing her with a knife and stuffing her body into a sack.
And the text identifies the victim. It's Martha Karuma from Waryangu Church.
So this is someone in their network.
Right. Rachel had actually written a note on the back of these photos, confessing her absolute terror of Kiandandu, explicitly calling him a beast. She was trapped with the evidence.
And right alongside these gruesome photos, Sammy finds her bank receipts.
Yeah, the money. The paperwork shows recent deposits of 20,000 and 60,000 shillings. Her total account balance sits at 120,000 shillings.
Which, in the socioeconomic context of this narrative, is a staggering amount of liquidity for a young woman.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because there is a massive logical disconnect here.
Mm-hmm.
You have a young woman with 120,000 shillings in the bank, yet she dies in an underfunded shared public hospital bed, all because she had to rely on a shady back alley clinic for a medical procedure.
It makes no sense on the surface.
If she had all that wealth, why couldn't she just walk into a private high-end hospital and get safe professional care? It completely shatters the illusion that dirty money buys safety.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we're looking at the deep, complex psychology of entrapment.
Yeah.
Rachel had definitive evidence of a brutal murder and massive financial resources at her disposal. On paper, she had power.
But she couldn't use any of it.
Exactly. Her proximity to the corrupting, terrifying influence of Kiandandu rendered her totally powerless. Wealth, when tied to a predator or an illicit ecosystem, doesn't insulate you. It isolates you.
That's a great way to put it.
She couldn't go to a reputable hospital because doing so requires transparency. It requires answering questions, filling out official forms, and potentially exposing the lifestyle, the source of the money, and by extension, Kiandandu himself.
So she was rich on paper, but entirely bankrupt in agency. The money was effectively useless against the moral and physical toll of her environment.
Completely useless.
And discovering this evidence isn't just a passive realization for Sammy and Sarah. Uncovering the secrets acts almost like a summoning spell.
Oh, this part is terrifying.
Right. The mystery is solved, but the abstract horror becomes an active physical threat. Because right as they are standing there, processing this terrifying reality, Kiandandu literally walks through the door of the apartment.
The ghost manifests.
Yeah.
The boogeyman from the photographs is suddenly breathing the same air, standing in the doorway of the gilded cage.
And he just stands there and arrogantly asks, "Who doesn't know me?"
The audacity.
It is a chilling display of untouchability. He follows Sammy and Sarah back to the hospital, completely unaware of what has just happened.
But then he finds out.
Right. The second he finds out Rachel has died, that one of his mentored mistresses is gone, he doesn't mourn. He doesn't offer condolences. He immediately flees the vicinity and vanishes.
That reaction is the purest distillation of a predatory mindset.
It's all a calculation.
Exactly. A predator only cares about an asset as long as it is viable and controllable.
Right.
The moment Rachel died, she transitioned from an asset to a liability.
Wow.
He cut his losses instantly because his only allegiance is to his own survival.
So, Sarah and Sammy are left weeping for their sister and their friend. But they have the black paper bag. They have the photos, the smoking gun evidence of Martha Kroom's murder.
And they decide to do the right thing.
They decide to seek justice. They take this incredibly dangerous evidence to a lawyer known as Auntie Sue to handle the case.
Which is what you're supposed to do.
Well, on paper, they're doing everything right. They're trusting the system. They're handing the proof over to an officer of the court.
They are relying on the very structures designed by society to bring order and justice. The legal system, represented by Auntie Sue, is supposed to be the great equalizer against a beast like Kiandandu.
Supposed to be.
Right. It is supposed to be the mechanism that protects the vulnerable from the powerful.
But then the narrative delivers a crushing plot twist. The proceedings completely stall. There are endless meetings and unmet promises, but no action.
Nothing happens.
And why? Because Auntie Sue, the lawyer they trusted with their lives and this evidence, is secretly Kiandandu's sister.
It's just a gut punch.
She has been deliberately burying the proceedings to protect her brother from the gallows. I mean, think about the sheer panic of that realization.
It's suffocating.
You take your definitive evidence to the very system designed to protect you, only to find out the lawyer is the murderer's sister. Where do you even go from there when the walls of justice are actively closing in on you?
You have nowhere to run.
Is this just incredibly bad luck, or is this how informal justice networks actually operate in this setting?
This raises an important question about the fundamental nature of institutional corruption. It is not bad luck at all. It is a feature of the system, not a bug.
A feature.
Predators like Kiandandu survive precisely because they compromise the gatekeepers first. When the gatekeepers of justice are actively complicit in the violence, the system isn't broken. It is functioning exactly as it was designed to.
Which is to protect the powerful and connected.
Exactly. The text notes that fear surrounded Sammy and Sarah, but hopelessness didn't overcome them. They made a crucial decision to cut short all interactions with the counselor and the lawyer for the sake of their own safety.
They had to.
I want you, the listener, to really absorb the mechanics of that choice.
It is terrifying to think that your only defense against a murderer is to quietly back away and hope he forgets about you because the law is entirely on his side.
It is, but we have to reframe how we view their retreat. This wasn't cowardice.
No matter.
It was a highly intelligent, necessary tactical maneuver. It asks us to consider how often marginalized individuals have to completely abandon the pursuit of official justice simply to stay alive.
Yeah.
When the institution is a trap, walking away is an act of survival.
So they realized they were outmatched. Kiandandu was, as the text explicitly states, protected in all sides. So they stopped pushing.
They let it go.
They retreat to pray for protection. And this profound institutional failure becomes the catalyst for a very different kind of resolution. Since the external avenues for justice are completely barricaded by corruption, the characters are forced to find internal resolution.
Which brings us to Stella.
Exactly. That brings us to the arc of another character, Stella.
Stella serves as the emotional and psychological anchor of this aftermath. Her trajectory shows us what happens when the energy meant for seeking justice is forcibly redirected inwards.
And Stella's situation is incredibly bleak at the start of this narrative.
It really is.
She is pregnant. She is described as emotionally broken. Because of her poor attendance during the first 2 terms of the year, she is severely lagging behind on her school syllabus.
She's basically set up to fail.
She has every systemic and personal reason to become another casualty of this toxic environment. She could easily slip into the same despair that consumed Rachel, but she radically refuses.
She pivots completely.
Aided by a private tutor that her parents hire for her, she registers late for her exams and decides to face her brokenness head-on.
The text uses a very specific, arresting comparison here. It says Stella became just like a reformed drug addict or a thief.
Which implies a level of desperation and total reinvention.
Absolute rock-bottom clarity.
Yeah. She becomes incredibly serious and hyper-focused. The narrative explicitly points out that she developed the ability to discern a bad deal from a good one from miles away.
A survival instinct.
She transforms her trauma into an acute radar for deception. She steps up to become a life coach for Sarah. She rebuilds a deeply supportive bond with her parents, and she ends up achieving immense academic and personal success.
Way more successful than her peers.
Far more successful than all the other teenagers in their village. She continues to nurse her pregnancy while aggressively preparing for her own future and her baby's future.
She metabolizes the trauma. Instead of letting the profound injustice of the world destroy her, she uses the friction of that injustice as fuel for hypervigilance and radical self-improvement.
So what does this all mean? Let me offer a different way to look at this.
Okay, let's hear it.
Stella's pivot is essentially a masterclass in psychological judo.
Oh, I like that.
Right. Instead of pushing directly against the immovable, crushing weight of a corrupt justice system.
Which would only exhaust and ultimately destroy her.
Exactly. She uses the momentum of that trauma to radically propel her own education and survival forward. She doesn't wait for Auntie Sue, or the courts, or even the broader community to validate her worth or hand her a victory. She manufactures her own victory internally.
That is a perfect way to frame it. The text notes something deeply profound about their abandoned pursuit of Kiandandu. It says they left the revenge to God in his own mighty ways.
Such a powerful line.
From a psychological standpoint, regardless of your religious beliefs, that is a massive cognitive release mechanism. By consciously letting go of the active pursuit of Kiandandu.
A pursuit that would have gotten them killed.
Yeah. Right. A pursuit that would have consumed their lives. By letting that go, Stella reclaims all of that mental and emotional bandwidth. She frees up the RAM in her brain, so to speak, and redirects it entirely into passing her exams and building her life.
So her success becomes her rebellion.
Yes.
Living a full, educated, and successful life is the ultimate defiance against the Kiandandis and the Auntie Sues of the world. The system expects people like Stella to just wither away, exactly like that cut rose flower we talked about at the beginning of the episode.
Precisely. The corrupt ecosystem relies on the vulnerable internalizing their powerlessness. By thriving against all odds, Stella proves that the system does not have the final say on her humanity or her future trajectory. Her resilience is a structural threat to the narrative that predators rely on.
Well, we have covered some incredibly heavy, complex ground today.
We really have.
We started with that jarring knock on a normal Saturday morning,
Well,
pulling us into the grim, desperately under-resourced reality of the Corinda Hospital ward.
a sobering reality.
And we explored the deep economic paradox of Rachel's lavish apartment, where pink teddy bears and 120,000 shillings masked a horrifying double life and a total lack of agency.
That illusion of safety.
We faced the terrifying brick wall of systemic corruption when the justice system inverted on itself, revealing Auntie Sue as the murderer's protector. And finally, we witnessed the vital, inspiring resilience of Stella, who taught us how to use psychological judo to reclaim your life when the world utterly fails you.
It's an incredible journey.
It really is. Thank you for joining us on this exploration of deception, systemic betrayal, and the mechanics of redemption.
It is a dense and essential narrative. And as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final lingering thought that steps slightly outside the main plot.
Okay.
Go all the way back to the beginning of this story. Think about the unnamed Good Samaritan.
Oh, wow.
The anonymous driver who was traveling down that dark road, who almost ran Rachel over after the doctor at the clinic dumped her like incriminating waste.
Just a random person.
That driver could have kept going. They could have protected their own peace and avoided the complication. But they stopped, and they brought her to the hospital. In a world completely dominated by calculated predators like Kian Dondu and corrupt gatekeeping authorities like Auntie Sue, it is incredibly profound that Rachel's only moment of grace came from a complete accident.
A near miss in the pitch black.
It makes you wonder, in our own lives, when the meticulously designed structures and systems we trust completely fail us, how often does our actual survival depend not on justice, but on the sheer random kindness of a stranger who just happened to be navigating the exact same dark road?